bombs away on this episode of Firepower. No longer cumbersome and slow, today's strategic bombers are weapons of speed and stealth. Launching their deadly payload from beyond the horizon, they batter the enemy with an assortment of cruise missiles and cluster bombs. Tanks, subs, or jet fighters, nothing is safe from the fury and destruction of an air attack.
The sleek shape of the B-1B is a remarkable contrast to its predecessor, the B-52 bomber. Flying the B-1B is also very different.
Although the B-1 is a 470,000-pound big bomber, it handles and flies more like a fighter aircraft. The cockpit has sticks in it. The windows are big, large windows. Visibility is excellent.
Unlike some of the other large aircraft, the controls are identical on each side of the aircraft. A B-52, the aircraft commander had very different and distinct duties from the co-pilot. In this plane, it's not really designed that way. It's designed that either pilot can fly the aircraft from either seat. It's again, just a mirror image. The duties and the tasks that are associated with flying a low-altitude mission at 400 or 500 feet and 500 or 600 knots, one pilot needs to be outside looking and clearing for other obstacles, birds, threats, and the other pilot can monitor the systems inside, make sure that the terrain following system and the engines, things like that, are performing as specified.
Pilots trained to fly the B-1B in a flight simulator, which is an identical replica of the real cockpit. Major Larkin explains the flight controls.
This is a B-1B simulated cockpit. First thing you notice when you get into a cockpit of a B-1 is it looks more like a fighter than it does a heavy bomber. We have the airplane has got sticks to fly with. Each position, the co-pilot and pilot have a stick. Each pilot has a set of throttles, and then each pilot has a wing sweep control, so the aircraft is just as easy to fly from the right seat as it is the left seat. The cockpit itself is fairly modern, even by today's standards.
The B-1B was designed to scoot under enemy radars at very low altitude. Flying so close to the ground at such high speeds can be risky. But the B-1B has the most sophisticated terrain-following system ever developed for a bomber, which even allows it to fly at night.
There's two options when you're flying low altitude. One, either hand flying it, or two, what the plane was designed to is to ride in an automatic terrain following mode. And that would be our preferred mode. The computers and the coupled with the flight control system and the offensive radar can navigate the plane and fly the plane at low altitudes very, very precisely. It gives us an all-weather night capability when we can't look outside and see what's in front of us.
Let's fly a simulated mission with a B-1B to see how these features operate. The crew is on standby alert when the alarm sounds.
Full cold manual back here.
I don't know. As far as I know, it shouldn't work.
Okay.
see now the computer was just painting a desired flight path above the ground, and you can now see the radar terrain trace that it paints for the two pilots on their vertical situation display. You can see the terrain ahead of us is fairly flat and rolling. A few valleys out here. This is marked out in nautical miles ahead of the aircraft, with the aircraft being here. So we can see, the radar sees at least 10 miles in front of the aircraft, and we can see the terrain ahead of us 10 miles out.
Practice target is attacked using dummy bombs. At such a low altitude, the bombs have parachute retarders to prevent them from exploding underneath the aircraft. With the training mission accomplished, the B-1B heads back to base. The two officers who sit in the aft station of the B-1B bomber control the aircraft weapons and the aircraft defenses. The B-1B is heavily computerized, and their functions bear little resemblance to the classic bombers of World War II.
The pilot team are responsible for driving the aircraft, or flying the airplane, if you will, and making sure that we get to where we need to go. But for me as a navigator bombardier, offensive systems officer, my chief job is to navigate our aircraft to the target, drop our weapons, get them on target, and then get us home. Defensive systems officer, my counterpart in the aft station, he makes sure that we are able to get there. He defends the airplane against enemy threats. As a defensive systems officer on board the aircraft, I'm primarily concerned with the navigation and weapons delivery. And I'm mainly concerned with the equipment that's from the middle of the aircraft on over here to the right. I'm in charge of applying a power to the navigation equipment itself, inertial navigators, the core electronics or the core computers for the system itself, bombing and navigation, and able to update the inertial navigators as we're flying along and make sure that we're able to hit our targets. This is what we call a CNAV summary. It lists the present position of the aircraft, the time to go to our next destination, what time we're going to get there, how far away we are from it, and then parameters like what the magnetic heading is to it, what the wind velocity and vector is. And this display also lists what radar aim points are going to be left or right of the nose of the aircraft as we're coming up on them, so I can aim at them. When I get down to aiming, I use the tracking handle to move my crosshairs onto the aim point, and I know exactly what the latitude and longitude of this aim point is going to be. So if I move the crosshairs onto the aim point, I'll be able to see exactly how far my inertial navigator has drifted off from where it actually should be. Then I can update the inertial navigator by using this method, and that way we can ensure bombs on target, and that's the name of the game, is bombs on target. We have 3 weapons bays on board the aircraft, as opposed to 1 weapon bay on the B-52. Internally, the aircraft is capable of carrying up to 24 gravity nuclear weapons or short-range attack missiles or air-launched cruise missiles. That's what the aircraft is capable of carrying. That's quite a lot of ordnance in one piece, in one place. The B-52, on the other hand, can't carry nearly as much, internally that is.
Besides conventional or nuclear bombs, the B-1B can also carry 2 types of nuclear missiles, the SRAM and the air-launched cruise missile.
SRAM, the acronym for Short-Range Attack Missile. The missile itself was developed in the late 1960s, early 1970s as a weapon that bombers could use as they're ingressing to a target. One way to employ them could possibly be as you're ingressing to a target, you may want to take out enemy defenses here and there to make sure that you can get to your targets. And the short-range attack missile, we just launch the missile and it goes out and strikes those targets as we're going inbound to another release. Air-launched cruise missiles, on the other hand, are you could call them a standoff weapon, if you will. You can stand off outside of harm's way and launch the air-launched cruise missile from high altitude, and the weapon will just navigate itself to its own target.
During World War II, the main threat to bombers came from enemy fighter planes. The bombers defended themselves against enemy fighters with machine guns and could be escorted by friendly fighters. The B-52 bomber of the 1950s, like its World War II ancestors, carries a single automatic cannon in its tail. The B-1B has no guns to defend itself because the threat to bombers has changed. Since the 1960s, the main enemy of the bomber is no longer the enemy fighter, but the surface-to-air missile. Modern anti-aircraft missiles rely on radar to find the bomber and guide the missile to hit the bomber. So to defend the B-1B against the deadly missiles, it is necessary to defeat the radars that guide it. This is the task of the Defensive Systems Officer using electronic countermeasures.
You don't have any active or any lethal defense as a gun. And the reason for that is it's really not needed. The B-1 is whole design is designed so we don't need that. Our low radar cross-section, which is approximately 1% that of the B-52 is a head-on shot, is our big advantage. The importance of low radar cross-section, especially in a penetrating bomber, is that the operator on the ground who's controlling, say, surface-to-air missiles or artillery guns trying to shoot us down, he doesn't have the ability to see us as easily as a target with a large radar cross-section. What we mean by that is on his scope, usually get a blip, let's say that generic term. Now, he won't be able to see us at all, or if he does, it'll be a small blip. Hopefully, he won't be able to pick us up at all. Therefore, if he can't see us, he can't shoot us down. And we have the low radar cross-section because we don't have the external antennas in that, and our high speed. We don't need any active or lethal defense. We do carry electronic countermeasures, which we use really as a last resort. Our main mission is to go run silent into the threat area, so they'll never see us. And that's our main mission. But if they do see us, as a last resort, we will use our electronic countermeasures for ground and air threats. We also carry expendables, chaff, and flares against infrared homing missiles.
Future generations of strategic bombers like the B-2 stealth bomber promise to be virtually invisible to enemy radar. Nearly any combat aircraft can carry bombs. Almost all fighter aircraft, from the smallest through the largest, can be fitted to carry bombs and precision-guided munitions. However, over the years, specialized attack aircraft have been developed specifically for bombing and ground attack. Tactical strike airplanes, which are armed primarily with conventional bombs and missiles, are usually called attack aircraft. The term bomber is usually reserved for much larger strategic aircraft armed with thermonuclear bombs and missiles. Attack aircraft differ in their design depending on their weapons and targets. One of the most specialized attack aircraft is the United States Air Force's A-10 Thunderbolt. The A-10 is designed specifically to attack tanks. It is armed with a powerful 30mm cannon in its nose and can also carry bombs and special precision-guided attack missiles like the Maverick. The most sophisticated attack aircraft in NATO today are the Tornado and the F-111. These aircraft have advanced computers and attack radars which allow them to precisely locate and attack targets even in bad weather or at night. Over the past decade, several new types of aircraft weapons have been developed that have revolutionized ground attack. The laser-guided bomb can home in on pinpoint targets. Guided missiles like the Maverick contain their own sophisticated target seekers that steer themselves all the way to impact. The Durandal bomb is intended to crater enemy airfields to prevent their use. Propelled by a rocket, it bores through the concrete and explodes deep underneath several seconds after impact. Cluster bombs, like the Matra Beluga, scatter their deadly munitions over a much wider area than more conventional bombs. The weapons that this team is loading into a B-1B bomber are simulated B-61 thermonuclear bombs. If these bombs were real, each would have the explosive force of 500,000 tons of high explosive, enough to destroy a small city. In peacetime, even these simulated exercises are conducted with the tightest security.
During peacetime, we treat it just like wartime. We don't treat these any different. Nuclear weapons are nuclear weapons. There's an Air Force regulation that covers that, Air Force Reg 122.4. It's called two-man concept. It's a reg that states that no individual will be alone in an area with nuclear weapons. It's very critical that you don't leave any lone individual in the area that would have the time to tamper with a nuclear weapon or the system. So they have to keep in contact with each other all the way through the load. There's two security policemen usually at the aircraft tail end and the nose end, and they would, if they've seen the violation, would stop the load immediately. They would take the individuals to jail.
For all the training these airmen undergo, for all the expense and time spent designing these fearsome weapons, in the end, they will probably never be used. At the heart of Strategic Air Command doctrine is the notion of deterrence. Strategic weapons like the B-1 bomber are intended to deter aggression against the United States. If the B-1 is ever actually used, the policy has failed. The crews of these aircraft are all too well aware of their awesome responsibilities.
To use an analogy, my job is similar to like being a policeman. I don't think any self-respecting policeman would get up in the morning thinking that he's going to go out and shoot a criminal that day. I'm the same way. When I go to work, I don't want to pull out my gun, so to speak, and hurt someone. We're here to deter and keep people from attacking this country, and that's what we're here to do. If deterrence were to fail, to borrow a term from the Marine Corps, no one likes to fight, but someone has to know how, and that's what we're here to do.
Well, of course, you never want to have any major war break out, especially the kind of war that would happen when we're involved with the B-1. Our mission, of course, is deterrence, but we still have to get into the books, and we really study up for the mission if we really had to do it. I think, of course, we'd be highly motivated if the horn did go off and we were launched and we knew this was going to be the big war. I think we'd be probably more motivated thinking that probably our families wouldn't be here when we got back, so we'd probably do that much of a better job. Although we'd really hate to see that ever happen. Hopefully it never will.
In an age of intercontinental ballistic missiles, the manned strategic bomber may seem like an outdated concept. Yet the manned bomber still has one very important feature. In an international crisis, the bombers can be launched and then recalled if the crisis subsides. The manned bomber serves as an important political tool to a president in time of international tension.
The biggest one, I think, in terms of national command authority is the ability to recall the bomber. Once it's launched, if a tense situation subsides, our command authority can bring us back to a base and put us back on the ground. Another real good asset of the plane is a show of force You can project it forward to forward bases, put it in the air, show an intent, where it's impossible to do that with, say, a land-based missile or a SLBM.
Future strategic bombers may look very different from today's B-1B. The United States Air Force has been developing the exotic B-2 stealth bomber. The B-2 carries the stealth features of the B-1B much further and is virtually invisible to radar. The manned bomber may no longer be the primary element of the strategic forces of the superpowers, but it is likely to remain an important element of the strategic triad into the 21st century.